Nestled deep within the turbulent waters of the Pacific Ocean lies an island shrouded in mystery and dread. Known only as Crimson Isle, this forsaken place has become infamous for harboring a dangerous cult that conducts its dark rituals far from the prying eyes of the outside world. Rumors circulate about the island's inhabitants, an assortment of killers, each more ruthless than the last, who have pledged their allegiance to a charismatic yet sinister leader. The lush greenery and serene beaches are a deceptive facade, hiding the malevolence that runs rampant beneath the surface as boats approach the rocky shore. A sense of unease envelopes those who dare to land. Visitors often vanish without a trace, swallowed by the secrets of the island. The few who escape tell tales of brainwashing, violent initiation rites, and the chilling loyalty demanded by the cult. Its members, clad in ominous robes, patrol the perimeter with an unwavering vigilance, ensuring that no one leaves, whether willingly or otherwise. This is where Jason Statham and Scarlett Johansson find themselves unexpectedly stranded. Their initial intentions, separate missions that led them to this haunting location, quickly unravel into a fight for survival when they learn of the cult's deadly reputation. As night falls upon Crimson Isle, shadows loom larger than life, and unsettling sounds echo through the trees, heightening their senses and igniting their instincts. The island's atmosphere is charged with tension. Every rustle in the underbrush could signal danger. Jason, known for his fierce determination, scans their surroundings while Scarlett's sharp wit keeps them both on alert. United by a common goal, to escape this nightmare, they realize that their best chance lies in forging an alliance, even if it means fabricating a bond that goes beyond mere survival. In this perilous setting, they must navigate not only the physical threats posed by the cult, but also the emotional challenges that arise from their forced companionship. Trust becomes an elusive concept as they delve deeper into a world rife with deception and violence, setting the stage for an extraordinary quest for freedom on Crimson Isle. Jason Statham, a former Special Forces operative turned freelance bodyguard, had been tracking illicit activities linked to the cult on Crimson Isle. His instincts told him that something dark was brewing beneath the idyllic facade of sandy beaches and lush forests. With a reputation for getting the job done no matter the odds, he was determined to gather information and dismantle the operation from within. This mission was personal. He wanted to ensure that no other innocent lives would be lost like his dear friends had been years ago at the hands of criminals connected to this very cult. On the other hand, Scarlett Johansson was a skilled investigative journalist known for her fearless pursuit of truth. Her latest story had led her to rumors about a series of disappearances tied to the cult's activities on Crimson Isle. Driven by a strong sense of justice and an unyielding desire to expose corruption, she saw this assignment as a chance to bring light to the darkness enveloping the island. Each lead she followed hinted at deeper conspiracies, pushing her closer into danger but igniting her journalistic fire even more. Their paths crossed serendipitously when Jason stumbled upon Scarlett while scouting the island for threats. She was documenting her findings at a remote cliffside, intent on capturing evidence that could validate her suspicions. When their eyes met, they initially perceived each other as potential threats, strangers in an unfamiliar land where trust was hard to come by. However, it quickly became clear that they were on the same side but needed each other's skills to survive. Sharing crucial intel about their respective missions, they recognized that forming an alliance would bolster their chances against the cult's vigilant members. Their motives aligned. They both sought justice and survival. It was this shared resolve that would ultimately prompt them to devise a plan. They would fake a marriage to shield themselves from suspicion and gain access to deeper levels of control within the cult. As they wove their stories together, they began not only to rely on each other but also to uncover unexpected layers of strength in one another amid the escalating dangers surrounding them. The cult that has taken root on Crimson Isle is a well-organized and malevolent entity, led by a figure known only as the Prophet. Charismatic yet terrifying, the Prophet has a magnetic grip on his followers, who believe he possesses divine insight and power. This belief translates into unwavering loyalty, ensuring that dissent is met with swift, brutal consequences. The cult operates in near-total secrecy, isolating its members from the outside world and instilling fear in any outsiders who dare to approach. Hierarchy within the cult is strictly enforced. At the top are the Prophet and his trusted inner circle, known as the Chosen. These individuals carry out his orders with ruthless efficiency, maintaining control over various factions of the cult that operate on the island. Below them are ranks of enforcers and acolytes, whose loyalty is often tested through violence or sinister initiation rites designed to cement their allegiance to both the prophet and the cult's twisted ideology. Scarlett and Jason quickly recognize the extent of this control as they attempt to blend in among the island's inhabitants. Cult members patrol with weapons in hand, eyes ever watchful for any signs of rebellion or infiltration. The lush landscapes become a menacing labyrinth, where danger lurks behind every tree and shadow. Outsiders are seen not as visitors but as threats to be eliminated. Those who have wandered too close often find themselves captured or worse as they delve deeper into the cult's workings. Jason and Scarlett uncover a chilling reality. The cult runs a system of indoctrination that transforms ordinary people into devoted killers. With each passing day, they witness disturbing acts in the name of the cult, their willingness to commit heinous crimes for their leader amplifying their sense of urgency to escape. Understanding the severity of their situation, they realize that pretending to be a married couple not only provides them protection from suspicion but also offers opportunities to learn more about the cult's inner workings under the ruse of marital bliss. This precarious balance between deception and survival sets the stage for their next move, as they strategize ways to gather information and ultimately dismantle the cult from within before it consumes them entirely. As Jason and Scarlett huddle together in the shadow of a towering palm tree, contemplating their next move, an urgent realization dawned upon them. To survive the cult's merciless grip, they needed a solid cover story. It didn't take long for them to conjure the idea of faking a marriage, a union that could deflect suspicion, and offer an element of protection in a world where trust was non-existent. Their plan to present themselves as a married couple was strategic. Marriages among cult members were not merely ceremonial but served as alliances that fortified loyalty within the group. A visible commitment would signal to the cult members that they were not threats but rather newlywed comrades, potentially granting them access to exclusive information and resources. This would allow them the freedom to explore and gather intel without arousing too much suspicion. Scarlett, leveraging her investigative skills, began mapping out how they would present themselves. She suggested adopting a shared backstory of a whirlwind romance that led them to Crimson Isle for a honeymoon adventure. Jason, with his tough exterior and penchant for hyperbole, took on the role of the rugged protector, stubbornly devoted to his new wife. They selected names for themselves that rang familiar yet untraceable, building their narrative. Layer by layer, however, the urgency of their decision wasn't lost on them. Each day that passed brought new dangers. Their encounters with the cult members had grown increasingly menacing, and they could feel the pressure mounting. The need for an immediate transformation from wary allies to a believable couple became paramount. Any misstep could expose their ruse and lead to dire consequences. With night approaching and the ominous sounds of the island amplifying around them, Jason and Scarlett dove into practicing their married interactions. They awkwardly rehearsed tender exchanges while stifling laughter at the absurdity of their situation. Yet underneath the playful banter lay a palpable tension. Both knew they were stepping into potential oblivion. This fabricated marriage was not just an artifice. It was their lifeline amid an unyielding storm. If they could pull off this charade, it might be their best chance not only to survive but also to dismantle the very foundation of the cult threatening their lives. With their plan to fake a marriage set in motion, Jason and Scarlett plunged into preparations, fully aware that convincing the cult of their commitment would require careful attention to detail. They knew the stakes were high. Failure to convince their captors could lead to dire consequences, including exposure and elimination. First, they needed a ring, something that would look authentic yet inconspicuous enough not to attract excessive scrutiny. Jason scavenged through some abandoned lodgings in their vicinity, finally discovering an old but decent-looking band that had seen better days. It wasn't particularly glamorous, but it would serve its purpose as a symbol of their fabricated union. Next came the backstory. They decided to play into the idea of a whirlwind romance, one that had led them to seek refuge on Crimson Isle for an idyllic honeymoon. Scarlett crafted a narrative about meeting Jason during a chance encounter at a travel expo, where sparks flew amid glimpses of adventure. She practiced her lines in front of Jason, who listened intently, offering feedback to make their story seamless and believable. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, they also realized they needed to develop some physical displays of affection. a challenge for two people who were still getting accustomed to each other's presence. Jason attempted to channel his best romantic gestures, awkwardly wrapping an arm around Scarlett's shoulder while walking along the beach. They exchanged playful banter, all while maintaining an undercurrent of seriousness, knowing that if they slipped even slightly out of character, it could spell disaster. However, no preparation could fully eliminate the daunting reality of how they would need to act around cult members. They rehearsed specific scenarios in which they might need to display intimacy while remaining vigilant for any signs of suspicion from those who were watching them. Their eyes darted nervously around as they shared laughs about this ridiculous charade. Cloaked and dangered as night encroached upon the island, a sense of urgency permeated their preparations. They understood that each passing hour brought them closer to potential discovery by the cult, amplifying their resolve to uphold this facade. This fake marriage was not just a role. It was their lifeline against an insidious force determined to eliminate any outsiders who dared tread upon their domain. The stakes were higher than ever, as they mentally steeled themselves for the dangerous dance ahead, one where trust was a luxury neither could afford. With their plan to fake a marriage in place, Jason and Scarlett stepped into the heart of the cult's territory, a calculated risk that sent adrenaline coursing through their veins as they walked hand in hand along the dirt paths leading deeper into the island. The atmosphere grew thick with tension. Every rustle in the underbrush and every distant voice echoed with potential danger. It wasn't long before they encountered their first cult members. Two men clad in dark robes, their faces obscured by hoods. The enforcers seemed to glide silently rather than walk, a palpable menace radiating from their presence. Jason's instincts kicked in, and he instinctively shifted closer to Scarlett as they prepared to face their first test. With steely resolve, he focused on maintaining the facade of a loving husband, wrapping an arm around her shoulders while forcing a smile that barely masked the unease churning inside him. "Ah, new arrivals," one of the enforcers said, his voice dripping with mock warmth. "Welcome to Crimson Isle. The prophet will be pleased to see fresh faces." The other man eyed them suspiciously, as if he could see through their charade as they responded with carefully rehearsed pleasantries. Scarlett felt her stomach twist when she caught a glimpse of a blood-stained knife strapped to one enforcer's waist. The raw power of intimidation radiated from these men. They were not just followers, but ruthless protectors of the cult's dark secret. Throughout their brief exchange, Jason did his best to read the situation, searching for any signs of doubt or curiosity in their eyes that could threaten their ruse. After a few tense minutes of idle chatter filled with carefully chosen lies about their desire for spiritual enlightenment, the enforcers finally nodded and moved on, leaving Jason and Scarlett in a state of heightened alertness. The encounter starkly illustrated the perilous environment they had entered as they continued down the path. Both knew that they would have to keep this level of pretense up at all times. The fear of exposure loomed over them like a dark cloud. Any slip could lead to dire consequences, but with every interaction, they also gathered bits and pieces of information. The way the cult communicated, their fixation on loyalty, even whispers of strange rituals, all vital as they verged on a life-threatening game of deception. Their hearts raced with both fear and determination, fueling their resolve to maintain this ruse no matter the cost. The real testing grounds lay ahead, and if they were to survive and ultimately dismantle this horror from within, they would need to dance expertly among the shadows. As days turned into nights on Crimson Isle, the forced pretense of marriage began to morph into something neither Jason nor Scarlett had anticipated. With every shared moment, a bond forged in the fire of survival began to take shape. The close quarters of their ruse, paired with the constant threat of danger, pushed them into situations where vulnerability was not just accepted but necessary. One evening, while hiding in a secluded cave after narrowly escaping a patrol of cult members, they shared a rare quiet moment. The sounds of the island faded away as they sat side by side, their shoulders touching. Jason, with his broad frame accentuated against the cave walls, looked over at Scarlett and saw the weariness etched on her face. "You okay?" he asked softly, realizing how much her safety meant to him. Scarlett nodded, though her eyes betrayed her anxiety. "Just processing," she admitted. In that simple exchange, something shifted between them. Jason reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face, A gesture so intimate that it caught them both off guard. It was a fleeting moment that felt charged with unspoken fears and hope. Later in their journey, as they practiced their married roles with more confidence among the cult members, Scarlett found herself drawing strength from Jason's unwavering resolve. During one particularly strenuous encounter with a suspicious enforcer, Jason's quick thinking had saved them both from seeming out of place. In the aftermath, as they walked away from danger, Scarlett found herself laughing at his sarcastic remarks about their lackluster acting skills. "Maybe we should consider a career in theater," she teased, but she could see the flicker of surprise and laughter in his eyes, a glimpse of the man behind the hardened exterior. Their conversations grew deeper as they shared fragments of their lives before Crimson Isle. Stories about family, dreams unfulfilled, and losses endured. Each revelation chipped away at the walls they had built around themselves. Laughter intermingled with tears as they faced shadows from their pasts together. In moments of stillness beneath starlit skies or amidst quiet conversations while preparing meals scavenged from the island's sparse resources, an authentic connection sparked amid the charade. They began to rely on one another not just for survival but also for emotional support, their camaraderie blossoming into an undeniable alliance forged through adversity. With trust gradually taking root between them, Jason found himself more protective of Scarlett than he had anticipated as they approached deeper levels within the cult's ranks. This burgeoning bond would be essential, each willing to risk everything to look out for the other as they navigated treacherous waters together, both literally and figuratively. On their quest for freedom, as Jason and Scarlett settled further into their roles as a married couple, their cover allowed them more freedom to explore the inner workings of the cult. Their ruse proved invaluable as they gained access to areas previously off-limits and began to overhear whispered conversations that revealed unsettling truths about the cult's operations. One evening, while pretending to share a romantic dinner inside the communal dining hall, they found themselves seated near a group of cultists discussing an upcoming ritual. Jason's ear tuned in to the hushed tones that hinted at a significant event, the Ascension ceremony. The cult members expressed their enthusiasm for what they believed would be a divine event, where they felt the prophet would unveil a new level of enlightenment. Scarlett leaned in closer, feigning interest in her husband's affectionate gaze, but her mind raced with implications. "What is this Ascension ceremony?" Jason whispered under his breath as he caught snippets of phrases like sacrifices and chosen ones. This revelation sent chills down their spines. It suggested that the cult was planning something monumental and potentially horrific later, while exploring a seemingly abandoned shed on the outskirts of the compound under the pretense of looking for firewood. They stumbled upon disturbing artifacts, ritualistic tools, remnants of past ceremonies, and even a journal detailing previous occurrences of sacrifice that made Jason's stomach churn. Each entry documented names of victims who had vanished, without a trace, confirming their worst fears about the cult's brutality. The journal vividly narrated how recruits were selected based on loyalty tests, manipulated through psychological tactics and coercive indoctrination. It became painfully clear that newer members were subjected to a systematic stripping of their identities, ultimately aligning them with the cult's twisted beliefs. Armed with this knowledge, Jason and Scarlett understood that time was running out. The two strategized late into the night under dim light, piecing together information gathered from conversations and insights gleaned from the journal. They confirmed that if they could gather enough evidence before the Ascension ceremony, they might be able to expose the cult's atrocities when they finally escaped. Their resolve intensified. Not only did they want to survive, but they also needed to ensure that others wouldn't fall victim to this horrifying cycle. They plotted their next moves with newfound determination, an understanding passed between them. Their growing bond was no longer just about survival. It had evolved into a shared purpose motivated by justice. With every secret unraveled, they sensed that their collective bravery was surging as they prepared to confront the heart of darkness on Crimson Isle. As Jason and Scarlett delved deeper into the cult's secrets, the atmosphere on Crimson Isle grew increasingly menacing. The news of the Ascension ceremony approached like a storm cloud on the horizon, and with it came escalating threats. It wasn't long before they discovered that their activities hadn't gone unnoticed. One evening, while scouting a secluded area near the compound, a sudden rustling in the bushes caught Jason's attention. His instincts kicked in as he motioned for Scarlett to stay quiet. They both crouched low, listening intently as footsteps drew closer. heavy and deliberate, speaking in hushed tones as they neared their position. "It's them?" Jason whispered sharply, his heart racing. He recognized the voices. They belonged to the cult enforcers who patrolled the area with an iron grip. Fear gripped Scarlett as she felt his protective presence tighten around her. "We need to move," he urged, glancing toward a narrow path leading deeper into the trees. They slipped away just in time, narrowly escaping detection as shouts erupted behind them. "Did you see them?" One enforcer bellowed angrily after realizing that their quarry had vanished. The tension surged palpably as Jason and Scarlett pressed onward through the shadows, adrenaline coursing through their veins. The ensuing days were fraught with close calls. They often felt eyes upon them. Jason's formidable skills as a former operative were now matched by Scarlett's intuition for danger. Each time they evaded detection, their trust in one another deepened, a silent acknowledgement of interdependence born from survival. One sleepless night, while hiding out in their makeshift shelter, panic struck when they overheard two cultists discussing cleansing rituals directed at outsiders infiltrating their ranks. The words sent chills down Scarlett's spine. It was clear they were now marked targets for elimination within the cult's hierarchy. "Jason," she said breathlessly, clutching his arm tightly. "We can't let them catch us." With grim determination etched on his face, he faced her directly. "We move tonight." He laid out a plan. A desperate escape route through lesser-known trails that could lead them towards safety. In that moment of urgency and shared fear, Jason grasped Scarlett's hand firmly, vowing to protect her at all costs. Every brush with death only reinforced their resolve to dismantle this evil from within while ensuring that neither would be left behind. As dawn broke over Crimson Isle, casting a golden hue across the treetops, Jason and Scarlett prepared themselves not just for flight but for confrontation, taking brave steps into an uncertain future together against overwhelming odds where trust was their greatest weapon against darkness closing in around them. As dawn broke over Crimson Isle, Jason and Scarlett sat in their makeshift shelter, poring over a map they had managed to procure from one of the cult's abandoned quarters. Their escape plan hinged on a carefully plotted route that would take them through the dense forest, bypassing the main paths frequented by cult enforcers. Each twist and turn was marked with caution. Every inch of the island was fraught with danger. "According to this, we should head south towards the cliffs," Jason pointed out, tracing a path with his finger. "There's a cove there that might have an old fishing boat. If we can reach it before anyone notices we're gone, we could sail away." Scarlett nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I just hope the boat is still seaworthy. We can't afford any more missteps." She felt a wave of anxiety wash over her as she thought about the potential risks involved in their escape. If they were caught, it would mean certain death to execute their plan. They knew they needed to gather supplies without drawing attention. Under the pretense of marital bliss, they would need to blend into the cult's daily routines while secretly collecting food, water, and tools for their journey. Jason suggested they utilize one of the communal meals as an opportunity to gather what they could. "We'll have to be quick and clever," he said, his resolve evident. "Stay close to me. If anything seems off, we pull back." However, the biggest obstacle lay ahead: the cult enforcers who had recently become suspicious of their activities. Jason recalled overhearing a conversation about an impending cleansing that would target outsiders like them. This urgency heightened their need for stealth. They could no longer afford to act casually within the cult's confines. On the night before their planned escape, Jason and Scarlett meticulously organized their supplies and rehearsed their roles one last time. They practiced affectionate exchanges that would draw eyes away from any potential nervousness in their demeanor. Every smile and touch needed to appear genuine. As darkness fell, they crept out under the cover of night, hearts pounding with fear and adrenaline. The moonlight filtered through the trees as they navigated through familiar terrain toward the cliffs. With each step, there was a palpable tension. Shadows danced around them as they approached the enforcers' watchpoints. The final stretch loomed, ominously ahead. Any miscalculation could lead to exposure or worse. Yet they pressed on, drawing strength from one another as they vowed silently to fight for freedom. Not just for themselves, but for anyone still ensnared by the cult's clutches. Their lives depended on this moment, risking everything to escape a nightmare that threatened to consume them both. The night of the ascension ceremony arrived, cloaking Crimson Isle in an eerie stillness that belied the chaos about to unfold. Jason and Scarlett, adrenaline coursing through their veins, positioned themselves at the outskirts of the gathering, one eye on the cult leaders and another on their escape route. The air was thick with tension as members draped in dark robes gathered around a crude altar, illuminated by flickering torches. As the prophet stepped forward, his commanding presence sent shivers through the crowd. He began to speak in fervent tones, igniting the followers' enthusiasm for the night's rites. Jason exchanged a look with Scarlett, a silent agreement passing between them. This was their moment. Just as the prophet raised his hands to initiate the ceremony, Jason surged forward, breaking through the throng of mesmerized cult members. "Stop!" he shouted, his voice ringing with authority. All heads turned toward him in shock, including the prophet's. Scarlett followed closely behind, heart racing as she prepared to back him up. "Who dares disrupt our sacred ceremony?" the prophet demanded, fury etched across his face. "We're here to expose you for what you truly are," Jason declared boldly. In that instant, chaos erupted. Cult members surged forward, but Jason moved swiftly, pulling Scarlett close and diving behind a stone pillar for cover. He reached into his bag and produced a flare gun they had stashed away, a signal they had hoped not to use, but desperate times called for drastic measures. That he fired the flare into the sky. Bright flames erupted above them, casting an ominous glow over the scene and drawing startled gasps from cultists. "This is your last chance, stand down," he yelled, adrenaline fueling his urgency. But the prophet was unfazed. He waved his hand dismissively at his followers. "Seize them!" The cultists advanced with terrifying resolve, faces twisted in anger and fanaticism. Scarlett and Jason sprang into action. They fought back side by side. Jason's combat experience blended seamlessly with Scarlett's agility and quick thinking. They dodged grasping hands and retaliated with swift strikes that sent several members sprawling to the ground. Each blow was fueled by their determination to survive and a moment of sheer desperation amid the melee. They fought their way toward the exit they had meticulously scouted earlier. But their path was blocked by a massive enforcer who towered over them, raw power in his eyes. "Together!" Jason called out to Scarlett as they readied themselves, with a precise strike from Jason followed by a swift kick from Scarlett. They managed to topple him just long enough to slip past. The moment they dashed into the trees surrounding the compound, freedom felt tantalizingly close yet fraught with danger as alarms blared across the island. They could hear cries of rage behind them as more cult members flooded out in pursuit. Breathless but determined, they navigated through the underbrush toward the cliffs and hoped against hope that their escape vessel still awaited them at the cove. A final leap into freedom or a descent into darkness awaited just ahead. United as ever against overwhelming odds, they would fight for their survival until the very end. After an arduous journey through the dense underbrush and a desperate flight from their pursuers, Jason and Scarlett finally reached the secluded cove where they had prayed the old fishing boat awaited them. The vessel bobbed gently on the water, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos they had just escaped. They exchanged relieved glances, their hearts racing as they climbed aboard. Once inside the boat, Jason quickly assessed its condition. "We're in luck," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through him. "It looks like it can still float." With Scarlett's help, he began to untie the ropes that had kept the boat moored to the rickety dock as they pushed off into the open water. A sense of freedom washed over them, mingling with the fear that lingered from their harrowing experience. The dark outline of Crimson Isle receded in the distance, becoming smaller with every stroke of the oars. And those serene moments, the cacophony of danger faded, replaced by the gentle lapping of waves and a breeze that felt like fresh beginnings. "I can't believe we made it," Scarlett breathed, her eyes gazing towards the horizon. Yet even in victory, thoughts of what they had endured weighed heavily on her heart. But what about everyone still left behind? The others in the cult? Jason turned to her, acknowledging her concern. "We'll make sure their stories are told," he assured her. "We have evidence now, proof of their atrocities." A mix of determination and sorrow flickered across his features as he contemplated their next steps. In that quiet moment, as they sailed towards an uncertain future, they reflected on how far they had come together. Their fake marriage had blossomed into something genuine under extreme circumstances, fostering a bond forged from shared trials and tribulations. They had relied on each other in ways neither had anticipated, building trust through vulnerability and unspoken understanding. Scarlett looked at Jason, seeing not just a partner in survival but also someone with whom she had formed an inseparable connection. "You saved my life out there," she said softly. "And you saved mine," he replied earnestly, his respect for her growing deeper than words could convey. With resolve set firmly in their gaze, they planned to return to civilization not just as survivors but as advocates for those victimized by the cult. Equipped with knowledge and evidence, they were determined to expose Crimson Isle's horrors and help others find freedom from its grasp. United by a fierce conviction for justice and fueled by their newfound partnership, they set their course for home, ready to face whatever lay ahead together. As Jason and Scarlett sailed away from Crimson Isle, the horizon ahead glimmered with possibilities, yet both felt the weight of their shared experiences. The harrowing journey had transformed their initial fake marriage into a genuine bond forged through trials that had tested their limits. With every wave that lapped against the boat's hull, they reflected on how their relationship had evolved from a mere survival tactic to something deeper and more meaningful. In the days following their escape, as they navigated the open waters towards safety, conversations flowed easily between them. They discussed plans for the future, how they would collaborate to expose the cult's atrocities and advocate for those still entrapped in its grasp. But amid these conversations, unspoken feelings began to surface. Scarlett found herself glancing at Jason more often, noticing not just his physical strength but also his unwavering determination and kindness. One evening, as the sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, they sat together on the boat's deck, sharing stories about their lives before Crimson Isle. Jason spoke candidly about his past as a special forces operative, his struggles with loss and the weight of responsibility that accompanied his decisions. In turn, Scarlett opened up about her experiences as a journalist, her passion for uncovering truths and her desire to make a difference in the world. "I never expected to find someone like you out there," Jason admitted quietly, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I've always worked alone. It was easier that way." Scarlett smiled softly, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I used to think I needed to do everything on my own too," she replied. "But sometimes it takes another person to help you see things clearly." As they shared these intimate moments, the barriers built around their hearts began to dissolve. They were no longer just survivors of a nightmare. They were partners bound by trust and respect, a partnership that promised potential far beyond what they had originally imagined. With each passing day at sea, they realized their connection offered them something neither had anticipated: hope for a future filled not only with advocacy for others, but also with room for personal growth and perhaps even love. As they approached the shoreline of civilization, both felt an unspoken agreement form between them. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where they would stand united against injustice while exploring what lay ahead together. Their journey had changed them, irrevocably. Now it was time to embrace whatever awaited them beyond the horizon. Not just as allies but as something more profound than either had thought possible when they first set sail from danger's grasp.